CBT News celebrates 12 years of delivering news, content, coaching, and analysis to the retail automotive community. The strongest team in automotive media, CBT News. You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Welcome into another edition of Inside Automotive right here at the CBT Automotive Network. In South Carolina, a bill that would allow EV brands like Tesla and Scout to bypass the franchise dealer system has stalled. Joining us now to tell us more about this and what it means for the state today is Floyd Jr., who's the Executive Vice President of the South Carolina Automobile Dealers Association and the man out there fighting the good fight for you dealers in South Carolina and really, Sims, for dealers all over the nation that are watching this situation very closely, right? So welcome into the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us about this. Every dealer has been very concerned about VW's intention to sell Scout directly to consumers. It's getting a lot of people very upset, rightfully so. They're trying to do it in South Carolina, but the twist here is that they want to build $1 billion plant in your state, right?
Yeah, they got $1.3 billion from the state of South Carolina in incentives and infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
And then they're going to kick in $2 billion at some point to build a factory. But, as we described to the committee and to all legislators, that's just patently unfair. I mean, government can't pick winners and losers. It can't stick its finger in the marketplace and say, well, we're going to cannibalize all the businesses in South Carolina on behalf of this manufacturer and allow them to compete direct against families. That's just patently unfair.
That's right. And South Carolina, I should mention, is also home to another big factory there with BMW, right?
BMW, and you got Volvo as well, and neither one of them have asked to go direct in South Carolina. And BMW has been a good part of the state and community for 30 years and has never asked for it. In fact, they allowed me, if I needed to say that they stand behind their dealer network in this committee hearing. I didn't have to go there because, it was an 8-0 vote and didn't go so well for Scout and Volkswagen.
Right. So talk to me about that. Why was it an 8-0 vote? I mean, that's there's a lot of dealers out there that said, great, we've got somebody on our side.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you had the primary bill sponsor was the chair of the committee, and he voted against his own bill. I think, after meeting with constituents and getting, some more information on the impact to dealerships and then understanding the franchise model and the franchise agreements with Volkswagen better, he's like, so basically Volkswagen signed these agreements with all these dealers and now they want to take government cash and compete against their own dealer network. I said, I think we got a bingo. I think we got BINGO here. Yes.
That's right. It's interesting that they didn't make that part and parcel of the deal with South Carolina, going in to say, hey, we're going to negotiate right in this deal. We'll pick South Carolina to build our factory so long as you allow us to sell directly to consumers, at least in your state.
Yeah, there's some question about that. Why did they not make that part and parcel, as you say? Why did that not make that a key component of the negotiations?
Right.
And the only thing I can figure is that the people that were in that room that were negotiating that deal would have said, whoa, there's no reason for us to write you a big check if that's part of it, because the dealers have been part of these communities for 100 years.
That's right.
And they're not going anywhere. So that would be a problem for us as a legislative body to agree to that.
Yeah. Your association has had meetings with Scout officials and has been meeting with South Carolina legislatures about Scout. What can you tell us about those meetings?
Well, there's not a whole lot of middle ground, unfortunately. Volkswagen has dealers. So, I mean, this is not really a problem. This is a solution in search of a problem, is the way I described it in committee. We've explained and re-explained for hours on end to Scout officials and Volkswagen that you've got a dealer network. They've sold thousands upon thousands of cars for you over many, many decades. I think we can handle 2 more vehicles that be produced 2 years from now. I mean,
that's right.
We're not denying anybody a right in South Carolina. There are 34 OEMs that manufacture EVs and hybrids today. There are 150 EVs and hybrids in the marketplace. Nobody's being denied choice or the ability to buy one of these vehicles.
That's right. What do you say to the other side that says, hey, it's a free market system, it's free enterprise. If they choose to sell their cars directly to consumers, unlike the other brands that have decided to go through a franchise system, what's so wrong with that?
Well, I mean, free market it does not mean free cash. And when you get 1.3 billion in incentives, I mean, all of these manufacturers, keep in mind, they're addicted to government cash. I mean,
Right.
I mean, they really are. If you look
Yeah.
at Tesla and the gazillions they've gotten from state and local government,
Unbelievable.
and then the feds.
Right.
Well, I mean, Mom and I could could create a manufacturing plant if we had, the feds back us at every turn. So no, I mean, I don't think that's free market, and I don't think that doing a carve out that gives Volkswagen an advantage over other manufacturers or their dealer body is free market. That's the antithesis of free market, in fact.
That's right.
But it's a myth that they like to chit chat about.
That's right. That's right. How many Volkswagen dealers do you have in the state of South Carolina?
We have 8 Volkswagen dealers and then 4 Porsche dealers and 3 Audi dealers who all would be glad to build a facility for Volkswagen and Scout and market, sell, distribute, and service those vehicles at no cost to them.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. Why do you think a company like Scout, or for that matter, any company, any car company, wants to take on the headache that dealers have taken on for the last 100 years? Why would they want to do that? I mean, as we all know, dealers are that first customer to an OEM that buys, hundreds of cars. I mean, in the click of a mouse, you could sell thousands of vehicles to a network of 200, 300, 400 franchise dealerships around the country. Why do you suppose that Scout even wants to go this route?
Hey, that's the biggest question out there. I mean, they haven't answered it substantially yet in committee. Their answer thus far is it's just not the right fit for them. But I tell you, it's an interesting thing. And I graduated Auburn University, so my math is not my strongest suit. But you're going from what you just described, where a dealer buys all your inventory, whether it's good or bad that year, whether it's on fire or it's not.
That's right.
Then they likely finance it through your company.
Yep.
The floor plans often financed through the company. Then they build you a facility. They market it at their own cost. They sell the vehicle for whatever they can do, and then service the vehicle and take care of the customer's everyday needs. So you would be going from making money off of the dealer network and getting rid of inventory without the headaches, to now maintaining, staffing a sales facility and a service facility, special parts, tools. That sounds like an expense to me. And I would go back to the old adage that government governs best that it's closest to the people. And I think when you get to the retail level, there's no substitute for the nimbleness of an entrepreneur, of an individual entrepreneur. I don't think you can ever take government or a manufacturer and meet people's everyday needs at the level that it would need to be met for customer satisfaction to be where it needs to be.
Right.
This isn't going to happen.
So where do you think, and I agree with everything that you just said, that's why it's mind-boggling as to why an OEM wants to even go down this road. So where does this all stand today? What's the next step for either Scout or for your association on this issue?
Well, as you can imagine, we're in close contact with the legislature. Thank goodness we've been doing this for 100 years. These guys showed up 2 weeks ago, euphemistically, so to speak. And the dealers have been here 100 years in these communities, but we're staying close to the legislature. That particular piece of legislation, I mean, on an 8-0 vote to adjourn debate, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of life left in it. So I'm not feeling like the odds are real good there. But I mean, I would not be surprised if they made another push again. But we'll be right there. The dealers will be there every day to fight it. Right.
And I think the country is obviously watching South Carolina and what you're doing there with dealers to see how this goes. If the legislatures in these different states working with the state associations get together on this, then they can just put this to bed, right? And say, look, you're going to sell, if Volkswagen's going to sell Scout, it's got to be through a franchise network. Otherwise, it's going to get tied up in the courts and for years to come, which doesn't make anybody any money.
The calorie burn and the cash burn doesn't make sense. Back to your earlier point, to fight this fight 49 more times after you leave South Carolina just doesn't make a lot of sense. But then again, I mean, you're talking about an international manufacturer. I do think that the state execs and the dealers across the country need to understand that we're in an international fight nowadays. We're not it used to be we were fighting with the manufacturer about the color of the floor tile in the bathroom.
That's right.
That makes it be a fight some days, but I think this has moved to a much bigger bigger fight, bigger, broader fight, and it's international now. So I don't think that this subject's likely to go away anytime soon. I've told my folks to gird themselves for the next 2 or 3 years for an ongoing fight. And I feel good about this dealer body in South Carolina, and I feel good about this legislature in South Carolina because I think they get it. I think they understand the bigger picture, and you cannot cannibalize your own South Carolina businesses that have been there for your communities in the hopes of some international the second largest automaker in the world. Yeah.
Do you have any dealers or former dealers that are state representatives in the state legislature?
We do happen to have a state senator that's a Volkswagen dealer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
how about that?
That's great. That's great. Maybe he talked to his buddies and said, "Hey, here's the backstory on all of this," right?
I think he's scratching his head as to why they haven't been over there to see him, to ask him, why doesn't he open a Scout franchise for them? I think he would be glad to do so.
That's right. What do you think dealers need to do that are listening, whether they are, do business in South Carolina or other parts of the country? What can they do to head this off and say, hey, let's make it so that we don't have a problem down the road? Is there anything that maybe you're turning to your members, your dealer members, to say, hey, I need your help. I'm the association, but man, you got 200, 300, 400 dealers out there that can maybe flex their muscle on something like this.
I can only talk about our experience here, but stay close to the legislature, support your communities, and then do the requisite public relations to let legislators know what dealers are doing in their communities. But those relationships back home, nothing trumps those relationships back home.
Right.
I've seen it over and over again. I've done this for 32 years.
Yeah.
And I've seen it over and over again. When you get a strong dealer body and they're focused and they unite and they have those relationships back home, as strong as puppy's breath. You don't have to worry about some group coming in and getting some kind of quick change in the law. It's just those relationships are super important. And then the other thing I would say is, we got to hope that all these states hold the line, because as you talked about earlier, every little bit that you seed is ground that helps develop some momentum for these manufacturers to encroach on franchise law.
That's
and once you don't have good law backing franchise agreements, you don't really have franchise agreements. That's really what it boils down to is when somebody says it's just a couple of vehicles that we want to sell in the marketplace, the precedent erodes franchise law, and then that erodes the value of the franchise. And then at some level, you've got nothing at that point. There's a tipping point.
That's right. Very good point. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the business in South Carolina. How is the first quarter going here in 2025?
Well, it's slowed down, a little bit because it's February. Everybody's spending their money on Valentine's, I guess. But, it usually picks up in March and April when the tax man gives some of us a little bit of money back, not me, but some of us a little bit of money back. So, we're doing good in South Carolina. We're such a growth state. Anyway, everybody keeps moving to South Carolina. So our sales stay pretty consistent and usually are trending up even in the slower months. So we're real fortunate. But we do have a lot of people moving to South Carolina. Yeah,
no question. I saw a report recently that said during COVID and after COVID hit, a number of people came out of the Northeast to move into areas like Charleston and such. Is that, did you see a huge spurt in growth there?
Yeah, well, I was in Charleston this past weekend and I pulled a little newspaper, and the highlight of the week was a house that sold for $3,447 a square foot.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
The low for the week was $960 a square foot, up to $1,600 a square foot.
Wow.
But there was one house that sold for $3,447 a square foot. So we've seen some folks move here, and evidently they have cash with them.
That's right. Well, it's a beautiful state, and the job you're doing is awesome for dealers there in South Carolina. We appreciate all the time you've given us here. I'd love to do a follow-up with you to see how this is moving along. But Floyd Jr., Executive Vice President of the South Carolina Automobile Dealers Association, thank you so much for stopping by CBT News and giving us this update. And once again, congratulations on getting this thing kind of put aside for the time being.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.